It's 7 o'clock, and we're ready to call our September work session to order. We have a lot on the agenda tonight to talk about and ask questions about. And so, first of all, I want to welcome everybody that's here. I see we got 100% of our new youth council in the audience. Welcome. We're glad to see y'all and have y'all here tonight. All right. So this is conversation about what will be taken up next Monday night. And we really don't have a whole lot except a bunch of stuff under new business. And so we're just going to move on and start talking about some of those items. And so I'm going to ask that we start with item number 1.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to ask Rebecca to come up. She's going to, as the agenda says, the applicant has requested that the application be withdrawn for a later submission and be withdrawn without prejudice. So I'll turn it over to Rebecca. And for those of you who haven't met Rebecca, she's our interim planning director. She worked for Clark Patterson Lee. She's done work with us before, and we appreciate her coming in as we bridge this gap between Kaipo's departure and the hiring of a new planning director. So, Rebecca.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Thank you very much for having me here. As a quick rundown of the request by the applicant, Planning Commission heard this request for annexation and rezoning at the August 19th meeting and voted to table the decisions based on concerns over various application materials, concerns expressed by the community, public members of the public speaking for traffic, the kind of uses and overall site plan. And so the applicant has requested to withdraw the application to where they could at a later date resubmit and address a lot of the public's concerns, comments, questions. And so staff recommends that Mayor and Council take action at the meeting next week to accept the withdrawal without prejudice.
Thank you, Rebecca. Pretty simple. Any questions about that? And I did notice you mentioned that they might submit again in September, but it could be at any point in
That's
in the
right.
future, right?
At this point, the plan is September 25th, and then we would proceed with the annexation timeline and the zoning procedures law notification timelines, but it could be any time after that as well.
Got it. So they're starting over, brand new. Got it. Any questions about that? Okay. Next, we'll move on to item number 2. That is the proposal for Hillcrest Drive. Logan, thank you.
All right, good evening, y'all. This is for 1374 Hillcrest Drive, rezoning 24-002. It is for RS100 to RS100 senior residential development. It's approximately 11.6 acre parcel, and before I go any further, I believe everyone's been given an updated site plan that we just received the 30th. It's got some revisions, a lower unit count. I believe it's now 56 units, about 4.8 units per acre. This is just an aerial of the site. It's pretty much surrounded. It's a built-up area. You've got one of the apartment complexes across the street. You've got single-family detached built in the 80s and 90s. And you also have a relatively new townhouse project just a walking distance up the road. So this is the previous site plan that was submitted. It was 66 units, and as I mentioned, they've reduced that down by about 10 units. And this is it's a little catty-cornered, but it's a bigger view of that site plan. So they're including some more open space into that project. They are no longer counting the stormwater facility at the rear as an amenity. They've reduced their unit count so that they can meet the 25% minimum open space requirement required for senior residential developments. So staff conditions, they're pretty lengthy, so I'll just give you the highlights on them. Conditions 1 through 4, those are standard conditions we put on just about every development for residential rezonings. Conditions 5 through 7, those pertain to the landscaping and open space requirements. Condition 8, we are requesting that there be a crosswalk if warrants are met across Hillcrest so that the development can connect to the greater greenway system in a more safe manner. Condition 9, that is pertaining to landscaping at the front of the development. They're not showing very much at the moment, but we've considered a couple things as far as how our current landscaping requirements are, and we're asking them just to do a little extra, really. And then the same with conditions 10 and 11 for architectural requirements, just, again, asking them to do a little bit more, make it a nice community that'll blend in well into the neighborhood. Oh, yep, sorry. And then I do also want to note, on that site plan that y'all received, the sidewalks vary in size between 4 and 6 feet. The condition originally considered 5 and 6 foot sidewalks, not 4 foot sidewalks. So staff is opposed to the 4 foot sidewalks, and we would ask, should y'all consider approval to require that 5 and 6 foot sidewalk requirement as a condition. And that's it for me.
Thank you. I have a couple questions, if you don't mind, before I open it up to questions from City Council.
Sure.
Can you, I know we have a copy of the new site plan.
Yep.
Is there any way that you could put it up there so everybody else could see
Sure.
the new site plan? And you're welcome to have mine if you'd like. Is that the new? Okay.
That's the new one, but it might be a little hard to see from the seats. I'm not sure, but
Got it. Is that sufficient for y'all to?
I believe a representative of the applicant came around and handed y'all colored
Yep.
versions too.
And then I have one question about, I know what I've heard a lot about is the buffer between this and the existing neighborhoods. It's currently zoned RS 100. Is there a difference in the buffer between an RS 100 and what this is being changed to?
Yes, as a requirement of the senior residential development, it stipulates that there should be a 25-foot undisturbed buffer. I believe the applicant is currently proposing a 25-foot open space area, but in conversations with the community, and they can speak on that further at the hearing, they're considering implementing some landscaping requirements that we've outlined for them, including an opaque fence as well, so.
Thank you, Logan. That's all I have, and I'll open it up to anybody else that has questions. Yes, Taylor?
Logan, just to clarify that question the mayor just asked, under the RS 100, there would be no buffer required if it was just developed as it's zoned today, is that correct?
Correct. If it was RS 100, next to RS 100, there would be no buffer. They could clear right up to the property line.
Okay, and so this, what they're proposing is an open space strip that would be landscaped?
That's correct.
25-foot, okay.
And that would be outside of the actual individual units, their property lines. So it would be them, landscape, adjacent neighbors.
Thank you, Taylor. Thank you, Logan. Anybody else have any questions?
I have a couple of questions, so
Yes,
I'll go
ma'am.
ahead and start. I was wondering if, since we just got this new plan today, is this new plan required to go back to the planning and development? And do the conditions of the original plan still align up with the new plan?
It would not need to go back to Planning Commission. And then as far as the conditions, like I mentioned, I believe condition 1 shall be specific to the site plan. We had anticipated that the sidewalks within the development be 5 and 6 feet wide, not 4 feet. So should you want to, we would ask that you create that as a separate condition, sidewalk shall be between 5 and 6 feet in width.
Meg, if you've got more, we'll come back to you. Josh?
I do have comments. Just looking through staff recommendations, I mean, just conversation here between council. I think number 8, that's going to have to be mandatory for me, for the manual on uniform traffic control devices to put the rapid flashing beacon. I think that's priority. If we're have the Greenway right across the street, that's going to have to be priority. If we're going to be doing something like that. I understand the premise of the open space, 25-foot buffer all the way around. I would like to see some sort of condition from us if we go ahead and move forward with this, that there's going to have to be fencing, trees planted. I'm not really in favor. I've heard from many people from the community that are just not happy with clear cutting, fully aware of the requirements out of R100, but not in front of us currently. So, I mean, looking at the current plan or the revised plan, I believe the developer did come, I mean, they've reduced it down 10 units from the original plan that was brought forth. I still think there is some work to be done density-wise, honestly. I mean, fully aware of what the density is if it is R100, once again. And that just goes straight to design review for us. We're not approving, but I mean, I think we have an opportunity here. I love the senior development. I think that's a product that we need here in our city limits. I have no issue with that. I just think density-wise, if we can try to figure out something with the open spaces. I know it's kind of a give and take here with the density, but that's just kind of my first thoughts here and looking at the revised plan that we just got tonight. So, I mean, because we've been working off the plan that we've had. So that's all I have right now. Probably have to come back to me after people have some other comments. Oh, I'm sorry. One other thing. Staff did recommend number 3, the covenant shall stipulate no more than 20%. I would have to reduce that down if we were to move forward. It'd have to be 5 to 10% for me. So that's my first thoughts.
All right, thank you, Josh. Meg, did you have some more?
When you talked about the traffic concern and having the traffic study, I'm like Josh, and I really think that needs to be addressed as well. Because when I look at Hillcrest Drive, we have all seen how much Hillcrest Drive has grown. And right now, the 3 new developments, Novar, the refinery, and Hillcrest Landing, are not all occupied. I'm looking ahead to the future when they are all occupied, and I worry about the traffic on Hillcrest as a result of that. Right now, I also looked at the single-family homes and who uses Hillcrest as their only exit and entrance. So currently, we have 160 homes that use Hillcrest as their only exit and entrance. Those are most of the homes that are when you enter Hillcrest from the entrance down to Brookdale. So that's about 160 homes. Then you've got the refinery at Sugar Hill. They have not only 84 townhomes, but also 19 row houses. So we've got townhomes there as well. The refinery also has 178 apartments. And then Hillcrest Landing down the street has 63 townhomes, and Cadence has 294 apartments. So right now, we're looking at a total of 166 townhomes and row houses and 472 apartment units accessing Hillcrest in addition to the 160 homes. That's a lot on Hillcrest. We've got the city maintenance barn also on Hillcrest. I know our employees use Hillcrest often. So traffic is a big concern. And I think when it asked the question, will this impact transportation, question 4 on the planning and zoning report, will the rezoning requested create an overcrowding condition? Well, of course it will not to schools, but to the existing street, yes. I would have to disagree with the planning development department who said no, because it says, with respect to the existing streets, transportation facilities, or schools. And it will for Hillcrest Drive, especially when the other 3 units under development are all occupied. So I would like to put that to the planning department as well.
Meg, I appreciate your comments, and I want to bring it kind of back in just a little bit. So this is already zoned RS 100. Just want to remind everybody that. And the proposed new project is seniors.
Right.
So seniors, they don't have kids. They typically don't have as many cars.
Right.
And so there could be less of an impact with this rezoning. And so I appreciate all the numbers, but I think we actually probably need to explore the numbers just a little bit more.
And Mayor, I would definitely agree with that, because I like the concept of the senior resident development, and 80% must be occupied by a person 55 or over. 20% do not have that. It does, I looked it up, and somebody who's 55 could live there with a son, a daughter, and 2 children, as long as there's one resident in the house who's 55. So
Right, but the likelihood of, understand, right, but again, this is already zoned for residential, so there's going to be an impact regardless.
I understand that.
Got it, yep, thank you. Yes, Josh?
Just talking about the numbers, Logan, I'm not sure if you can work with me here in terms of what we're looking at number-wise. I'm just reading their variance. Applicants seeking a variance for age restriction requirement for the attached component. We're going down from 80 down to 50, and then the age restriction would remain at 80% for the detached units. I'm coming up with about 37 would be age restricted out of the 56. Does that sound about right? I'm not trying to put you on the spot math-wise. I'm just
Yeah, math was never my strong suit, but
Okay.
yes, I believe
Okay.
so, yeah.
So, yeah, 30, with the variance, 37 would be age restricted between both the attached and the detached. If we were to not approve the variance, we'd be looking at about 45. That's just what I'm kind of getting at with the number. So kind of put some context with some age restricted numbers for everybody.
And I believe I forgot to note this earlier about that. Staff is recommending approval of all of the conditions and variances with the exception of that 80 and 50%. We're recommending that they stay at the 80% occupancy.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Meg. Yes, Gary?
One question on that. How is 80% enforced?
Typically, that is enforced by the HOA. They could, should they want to, increase that to 100%. That's entirely within the HOA's purview, but the city would not be involved in that. It's more of a guideline.
Okay, but with HOAs like ours, if you choose not to follow what they say, I mean, they're pretty limited on what they can do. They can assess some fines maybe that turn into liens on when the house is sold, but that's pretty much the limit. They don't have any real teeth to enforce that if there's, if it's 30% or whatever. Josh, you deal with that a lot. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Recognized, Mayor?
If you want to answer, you're welcome to answer.
Sure. I mean, with a property having only 56 units, there is a increased likelihood of it not being professionally managed, which is a concern with provisions, A, not being followed through with, or B, being changed inappropriately, not through legal means. So you run into that issue of, because it says 80, there's no enforcement mechanism. Unlike a 400 unit property where professional management has to be involved. So,
All right. Any other questions, comments? Yes, Taylor.
Logan, just to follow up on something Megan mentioned about the traffic on Hillcrest. She had mentioned the refinery. Correct me in my memory if you can. The refinery's main entrance is off of Peachtree Industrial Boulevard, correct?
Yes, I believe so. I believe both of those properties have access elsewhere, and the only access points that you see on Hillcrest, those are emergency access points. I'm fairly confident on that, so.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Josh?
well, since we're here having conversation, not trying to put anyone on the spot if you want to answer or not, but what is everyone's thoughts in terms of the density of this project? I mean, because I think that's a huge driver from the comments that I've gotten from the community just regarding density. Fully aware if this was developed R100, you'd be looking at 30 to 35, I think on the max end, but of course that could be 5-6 bedroom houses, 33,000 square feet. So you're looking at a lot more traffic, 3-car garage. So, I mean, I think we're going to have a little give and take and open-mindedness in regards to a plan like this for the rezoning. That's just my opinion. Not saying that this is the best plan in front of us.
Taylor?
Well, as with any rezoning, whenever there's a request for additional density, you're looking at the trade-offs for that density. What does the community get in return? And I think in this particular case, while we get somewhere in the neighborhood of 25-ish units, somewhere in that range of additional, there is the age restriction. There is, the streets will be private as opposed to maintained by the city, thereby the taxpayers. We get some level of control over the architectural elements of it, and a control on the number, well, at least in the covenants, on the number of leased units versus, and a 25-foot landscape buffer between these units and the neighboring properties that would not exist were it not for this request for rezoning. So I guess that's the trade-off that we have to look at and consider in this. And that's to me, that's what you're always looking at in the zoning. We'll find out next week. It's hard to form an opinion yet till we have a public hearing, but those are the obvious trade-offs that we're talking about between if it were to stay zoned RS 100 versus senior residential overlay.
Yes, ma'am. Meg?
I would just like to say one more thing. As I was looking over the requirements for the senior residential development, one of the things that I noticed that it says in the zoning code is that it is recommended that these districts be located in areas that facilitate pedestrian access to nearby commercial goods and services and/or amenities/cultural facilities. And at the moment, for me to walk from that entrance area all the way to downtown, it's not that long of a walk, but if you're looking at a senior residential development and crossing over Hillcrest, that can be a little bit tricky sometimes, especially during certain times of the day. And I realize we're looking at potential commercial development at Stanley and 20. That's still not quite that close by. And I'm a little concerned about the walking distance to commercial goods and services. And I know we're not a really big walking community. We need to get there. I don't think people are going to walk to commercial services, especially in the summertime. So that's one of my concerns with the location, is it's not like some other places that are much closer and have more convenient access. So I just wanted to bring that up about that in the code. And I think that's it.
Thank you, Meg. Yes, Alvin?
Just kind of answer Josh's question. I did have concern on the initial when there were 66 units that was there from a density standpoint, but I do appreciate the attention to looking at revising that plan. I do think that this product is something that we do need within the community. Again, not going one way or another, but I do think that with having the opportunity of having this all maintained, manicured from a landscaping, maintained by the HOA is also another component that will be a huge trade-off. So just kind of give me some perspective on it.
All right, thank you for all the perspectives. Anybody else? I've got one favor to ask. There are some recommendations, some additional recommendations that I think you had that maybe are not reflected completely in this 11 points. So that we have a fresh starting point next Monday, could you maybe put those in writing so that we have them and we can see them and make sure that they're not missed regardless of what we decide to do?
Sure, absolutely. We just didn't want to change the staff report at this point, just for last-minute reasons. So it was a very last-minute addition, but we'll get that to you.
Thank you, Logan. Anything else on that before we move on to item number 3? All right, thank you, Logan.
I have one.
Yes, sorry, Gary?
Do you know what the linear footage of the roadway is?
The linear footage of the subdivision? Not off the top of my head, no.
Can you find that for us for next week?
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, we'll next move on to item number 3. Paul, you're going to take that one?
I'll get Rebecca up here, but we received a request from the applicant this afternoon to postpone the action on this particular item until, the request was until the October meeting, but I think when it's postponed, we would need to do new notices and start the process over again. But I think the applicant would be fine with that. Well, I'll let Rebecca take it from there then.
Yes, thank you. At August 19th Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission discussed the rezoning from AF RS100 and RS150 to rezone to RS100 and to bring it into the CBD overlay district. Planning Commission voted to table, citing the lack of site plan to be able to make a decision, a recommendation on the plan. So staff recommends Mayor and Council postpone the decision to a later date to give the applicant time to be able to finalize the site plan and submit it for review and recommendation.
Thank you, Rebecca. And I guess on this one, just like the withdrawal at our meeting on Monday night, when we get to it, we would need to table it without prejudice? Is that?
Just accept the fact that the applicant has requested that the application be withdrawn. And then we would have to
Not on this one. Mayor, you need to table it to a date certain. So if you want to table it to your October meeting, then you just need to table it to whatever date that meeting is. So you would just make a motion to table to a date certain.
Got it. And we will do that next Monday night, as I asked.
Correct.
right? Okay.
Yes.
Got it. Thank you. Yes.
So, question for attorney, since the P and Z tabled it, does that not automatically stay there until they're done with it? Or how does that process work?
It does not. It depends on how the city wants to operate in that manner, but just because the Planning Commission does not take action on it, it does not automatically force the proposal to stop, particularly when you have advertised a public hearing before the city council, and I think that's the next component of this conversation. If you table the item on Monday night without opening and having and holding the public hearing, then you'll need to re-advertise your public hearing for your next meeting. If you go ahead and have a public hearing on the item on Monday night, after the public hearing is held, you can close the public hearing and then still table it to a meeting in the future. You would not then be required to have an additional public hearing or to take additional public comments at that future meeting where you take action. So it's kind of up to the city council as to whether or not you want to go ahead and have the public hearing, or because they're going to submit additional information, you want to wait and have the public hearing at the future meeting. So there are a couple of different moving components to this.
I'd like to follow that up then. If the Planning Commission tabled it because they thought they would get to revisit it this coming month before we deal with it, I think we should at least advise them what tabling means to them, and that doesn't mean they'll get another shot at it, because that wasn't the impression I had come away from the meeting, probably, and that was a standing room only crowd, so I don't think that was probably the impression they took away either. So I think we need to just let them know, and so it can be explained at those meetings that doesn't necessarily mean they'll get another shot at it.
And as part of your motion to table it, and the staff is probably, appears they were headed in this direction anyway, you can always as part of your motion or as a direction from the city council, require something to go back to the planning commission. So on Monday night, you could table it to your October meeting and state or require that it be heard by the planning commission again at their September meeting. The staff, through the presentation I just heard, the staff indicated that their intent was for you all to table it to your October meeting, and that they were going to present it to the planning commission anyway, even though they would not necessarily be required to do so.
And just clarification, you said table, but I thought I also heard withdrawal. Is it withdrawal or a table?
No, just a postponement.
Okay. So I'd like the planning commission to be able to hear, especially if we're not going to do anything with it this month anyway.
I don't disagree with you. I'd actually like the Planning and Zoning Commission to do their job. They've sent us things like this in the past, and they're supposed to be the buffer, and they're supposed to have the first hearings, and so I don't disagree with you. I think that's they need to finish and send a good product to us. Yes.
I went to that planning commission meeting also. One of the reasons why they tabled it, as you also mentioned tonight, Rebecca.
Meg, I think we might not want to talk about like.
Well, can I ask one question?
I think we're not having a hearing on this, right? So I think the discussion is about whether or not to table or withdraw, not the technicalities of the please give us some advice. This is kind of out of, this is kind of out of the ordinary, so.
I mean, even if the matter is going to be tabled to a future meeting, if there are some questions or concerns that are had, it might be a good idea to express those so that the planning commission and the applicant can address those as they're redoing the process.
Get that, but my question is, can we do it right now?
I think you can.
Okay, I just wanted some guidance, and I appreciate that, because I don't want us to get into any legal trouble. So Meg, I just wanted to clear that with him. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, I appreciate that. When the planning commission did all that, I went ahead and looked at the city website, and on the city website planning and development page, it lists what documents must accompany an application. And no wonder they tabled it. I'm really surprised the application was even accepted by the Planning and Development Department, because it said must have the necessary documents, including a letter of intent and a site plan. So I'm just so surprised the application was even accepted, and that the Planning and Development staff recommended approval when none of the documents went with the application. And I really hope that next time a complete packet. So I'm glad it will be postponed, because as a city, we deserve to get the complete packet and not just an application. Even on sometimes I look at the interactive development map and documents are on there, and for this particular property, there were no documents on there. So I think it's really important for us and everyone involved with the city that we set the guidelines. If it's going to say on the website, these documents must be included with the application, then we do that. So I'm really hoping that that will happen next time, because that's really important.
Thank you, Meg. Taylor?
Do we know if the applicant, if we're talking about sending it back to the Planning Commission in September, will the applicant have the site plan and be ready to present to the Planning Commission in September?
I'll have to confirm that that'll be available at that time.
Because it sounds like to me, at least the direction City Council wants to go in is to have the Planning Commission hear it first and see it first, and have an opportunity for the public to give their feedback to the Planning Commission. So it would be helpful prior to next week, if we're going to table it to a date certain, that we know whether that's going to be the October meeting, if they can make it to the September Planning Commission meeting, or if we need to table it to November so that the Planning Commission can hear it in October. So if we could just get that clarity before next Monday, it'd be helpful. Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments on this one? Frank, we're probably going to rely on you to give us some guidance on the motion to make next Monday night, so it gets back to the Planning and Zoning Commission. All right, next we're going to move on to item number 4. and that is
That'll be Logan.
Logan. Thank you, Logan. Come on up.
Good evening again. This is a design review within the Central Business District at 5021 Nelson Brogdon Boulevard. It's the property located at the intersection of 20 and Stanley Street where the new traffic signal is, directly in front of one of the apartment projects. It's currently zoned BG within the Central Business District. So this is the submitted site plan. Broadly speaking, they're anticipating about 16,000 square feet of retail and restaurant multi-tenant space across 2 buildings and 1 proposed drive-through restaurant. The 2 multi-tenant spaces are going to total about 13,000 square feet, with the drive-through being the remainder. Materials of the project are varied. They include faux wood, synthetic stucco, brick in neutral colors with a warm wood finish, and as well as glass storefronts. And this is just another view of the project. And this is just a floor plan of the multi-tenant spaces. The entire project does include patio and seating areas, as well as connectivity throughout the entire local area. You've got interparcel access with the Sugar Hill Church, with the adjacent apartment complexes, access directly onto 20 at a signalized intersection, as well as greenway connections. All right, so that's what I didn't save. So the conditions, we are recommending approval. Condition 1 is elevation shall substantially resemble what has been submitted. Condition 2, we are requiring that the drive-through go through a separate design review and special use permit process as outlined in the zoning ordinance for the Central Business District. And I can speak to that a little more in just a minute. Staff is also requesting that the applicant activate the rear facades with a variety of different techniques, including landscaping, faux entrances, things like that, just to give it a little more appeal from the roadway as opposed to just looking at the back of a building. The applicant will also be required to dedicate approximately 2 acres of the parcel. I'll go back here. There we go. The green space kind of towards the north-ish, however that's faced, that green area is going to be dedicated to the city. I don't have any information on what for. It's just simply being dedicated to the city. We are also requiring our art feature requirement, or art feature condition we typically place on projects within the Central Business District, or a monetary contribution. And then conditions 6 and 7 pertain to the sidewalks and streetlights, just generally matching the downtown area as approved by GDOT and our department. So apologies for why those conditions didn't show up, but I believe you have them in your packets.
We do. I don't know if everybody has them in front of them. Meg, you good? Have you got all the conditions? Okay. Thank you.
And
All right.
that's it for me. So.
Any questions of Logan about this one?
I have a question about the orientation of it. I don't know if you can bring up the image that shows it relative to Highway 20 and relative to Stanley Street,
The overhead or the renderings?
both.
Okay.
Not that one. Nope. You just had it
There. All right.
there.
This is the
All right.
overhead.
So that's Highway 20 to the left, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and Stanley Street to the right. So what it looks like is the entrance to this, you have to go up Stanley Street and in through the back, and that the buildings are perpendicular to 20? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And the property on the north part of the picture that you're showing there, is that the drive-through where you've got the
Yeah,
regular area?
Building 3 up there near the top of the picture, that's the future drive-through that they are proposing, but that is not a part of this request, as outlined by the CBD requirements.
Okay, so 2 buildings to the south, looks like 1 building with a plaza to the north?
That's correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Logan, could you talk about the additional action a little bit more?
Additional action.
I'm assuming this
Yes.
related to the drive-through.
Yes, so in the central business district requirements within the code, there are certain uses that are explicitly prohibited in the downtown area. However, if they are outside of a certain distance and meet certain criteria, which off the top of my head, I don't quite remember, I apologize. I do know one of those is a road frontage distance to Hillcrest. Basically, it would require a special use permit application separate from this one, as well as a design review, because they're not showing any elevations for this building as it is anyways. They would need to come back, go through this process, because they are not meeting some of the guidelines within the CBD.
Thank you for answering that. Yes, Gary?
So once again, based on the layout of that building, it looks like if you go to a couple of pictures further down into the stack, right there. Oh, go back,
I'm not touching it. Yeah, man.
not
Go
that one.
back. There we go.
That one. All right, so what I see right there is the back of the buildings and no trees there. So I have concern about that showing that the front of the buildings you can see coming the other way, but this is pretty visible viewing area into the back of the buildings, which are typically pretty unattractive. And if you look at the things called the Sugar Hill Station Shopping Center that used to have the, what was it? The grocery store in it, to the right, back by, right, yeah. Right, Dunkin' Donuts there and the Twisted Tavern or whatever on the corner there. Back of those buildings you see on 20 is extremely unattractive. And I don't want to get into a similar thing to this. These are a little more decorative. I don't know if there's anything that can be done with screening related to that, but that's just a potential eyesore I see as we drive by, seeing the rear of the buildings like that. Just want to bring that up.
Staff is talking with the applicant, trying to go a little further. This is not what we're intending at the moment. We would like it to look more like the front of the store.
So there's a significant number of trees in that area right now that look like they would be taken out. I don't know if there's opportunity to save any of those to screen this. I hate to see them all torn down, then just replace with smaller trees that are not going to do as much screening, but that would be just a particular concern to mention in that area. Thank you.
It would be, it could be within council's purview to add additional landscaping requirements outside of what's already required in the central business district.
Thank you. Yes, Taylor?
To Gary's point, I think that's what condition 3 is addressing. Is that correct, Logan?
Yes.
Okay, I think that's what, because I agree, the back of those buildings can look really bad, so, but I see that we've taken that into account with condition 3, so I appreciate that, and I share his concerns. I'm really more concerned about the screening of the drive-through, but I know that's not what we're worried about this time, so we'll deal with that if and when that comes through, about screening the drive-through lane from Highway 20, but that's all I had. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. And I think the only and probably closest neighbor is Sugar Hill Church, and I have talked to them about this, and they're excited about it. So I think it gives their attendees on Sunday mornings places to go eat. And so, all right, any other? Yes, Josh.
Logan, I'm not sure if you have this in front of you, but does this developer applicant, do they have any consideration to grease traps? Because I'm assuming they're, trying to pursue restaurants in building 1 and building 2. So, mobile grease traps is not going to be an attractive option either on the back of the building, no matter how much we screen if we're gunning for connectivity off of Stanley Street. So,
Sure. Yeah, we haven't, that's not really within, at this phase, but that is something we can definitely consider in the permitting process. Obviously, staff could, if we're putting all those conditions, we wouldn't want to see the grease traps just out there.
yeah, I think that would be wise in council's purview, just to, put another condition on there for grease traps, because I just don't want a situation where we have a beautiful back of building, we spent all this time, and then we've got mobile rolling grease traps at the back of the building coming back and forth. So I know there's opportunities to put those in the front of buildings, in the ground. That's a costly solution, but if we're looking at, Class A retail space in the city limits, what we're gunning for, I think we need to spend Class A money in terms of getting the right equipment in the facilities.
Understandable.
All right, thank you, Josh. Anybody else? Yes, Meg.
Okay, I think this looks like a great idea, and it looks like a very good concept, and I think it's something that Sugar Hill needs. I just have a couple of minor questions, comments. It's my opinion that condition number 5 about the 25 grand or the art should be taken out, since they are already giving 2 acres to the city, so I don't agree with condition number 5.
Okay.
I'm a little bit concerned, again, as I stated before, about the traffic, because I'm a little concerned about Stanley Street, and it's only 2 lanes. You've got Novar, who is only going to use Stanley Street for entrance and exit. They do not have access to Hillcrest. And Novar has 288 apartments and 18 townhomes. When you leave Stanley Street, I'm guessing a lot of people might want to take a left to get to Peachtree Industrial or 985. That traffic light does not have an arrow. And I can see traffic getting backed up. I realize that they can, on here go to behind the church, but not having access on 20, of course, that would take a huge redesign, but I just want to go on record saying I'm concerned about the traffic from a commercial aspect combined with the residential aspect of Novar. As I say, especially being there's no arrow to turn left. I can see that area getting congested with it only being 2 lanes on Stanley. But I think the concept is great. The rendering looks really good. I'm assuming that they just put that picture of a bridge in there just to have a bridge, because it doesn't look really great at all. So I'm guessing that was just like just to put something, since there's a proposal for that in there. But otherwise, I think, I'm concerned about the back too, like everybody suggested. But those are my 2 comments, condition 5 and the traffic.
Thank you, Meg. Josh?
I've got a question maybe for Paul or Troy, probably for Troy. Has the city looked at, I'm not sure if this is future or, near, but widening Stanley Street, any capacity in terms of putting dedicated right or left straight turn lanes, making it, I guess at the intersection, instead of 2, a 4 lane right there for, I'm not sure if that is even on our radar, if we've looked at that.
I think when the area develops to the east of Stanley, between there and Peachtree Industrial, we'll look at widening for that project. Right now, there's not enough right-of-way.
Okay.
Thank you, Josh. Any other questions, comments?
Is that a
Alvin?
question, and maybe to turning right off of, coming west on 20 and turning right, is there a decel lane there, or is it just would be an immediate right from that light? Would there be a turn lane? There wouldn't be no decel lane. Yeah,
Stanley, on 20 and Stanley.
20 and Stanley.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch, is it westbound that you were
Oh,
considering?
yeah, I guess coming west on 20, turning right onto Stanley, it would be just a right from 20 as opposed to a decel lane and turning right. Am I phrasing that correctly?
Let me look on some aerial photos real quick,
Okay.
and I'll let you know. I can't recall.
Yeah.
Thought about it.
There's no decel lane, okay.
These,
All right. Okay.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, well, thank you, Logan, unless you're going to do the next one.
Nope, that's it for me tonight.
We're moving on to item number 5. It's another design review.
It's clear.
Claire, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. So staff received an application for a design review board within the town center overlay at 1011 Level Creek Road. Located along the greenway that is existing, that goes down Level Creek Road, just up the street from Sugar Hill Elementary. Surrounded by residential zone properties. So it is an addition and remodeling of an existing house. So this is the original structure that was there. Y'all might have driven past it and noticed it has since been largely demolished. The foundation is still there as well as structural support and the roof. So it doesn't quite look like this anymore, but this is the original home. Staff did receive an updated site plan for this application on Thursday afternoon. So we were not able to incorporate those updates to the staff report. The elevations are the same, just some site plan changes, which I will explain. So this is the original site plan and landscape plan. These are elevations, and then the renderings. So it is a navy siding with white accents, as well as a porch at the front and 2 deck spaces on the back with a few small flower beds. It will be utilizing an existing driveway on Level Creek. Where the changes in the site plan come in, which you can see here, is there is also an existing driveway on Cold Creek Road. It was not included in the original site plan. That was an oversight on that part. But they are hoping to include the second driveway in the design review. It is an existing driveway, so there are 2 existing driveways currently. Additionally, we had some concerns with the original landscaping plan and not showing any trees and not meeting our landscaping and tree requirements. But they have, because the property currently, I included a picture of the existing driveway on Cold Creek and the trees. They have some nice old oaks or hardwoods, so they're not planning to clear all of those. They're hoping to, the applicant has clarified to me that they are planning to retain those trees. That being said, the staff recommendation is to approve the site plan and buildings and material and architectural detail with the following conditions. So to adhere to the exhibits, and we'll update those exhibits accordingly with the new site plan, as well as landscaping, just to ensure that it is in compliance with our requirements.
All right, thank you, Claire. Any questions on this one?
I have one.
Yes, Gary.
Could you go back to the illustration of the house? That one, go back right there. Said there's a driveway on Level Creek and there's a driveway on Cold Creek. Doesn't look like a driveway to me. That looks like the same curb and rollover gutters. The rest of it just looks like someone poured some gravel there. Is that a permitted? Do we have any evidence that that's actually a valid parking area?
I'm not sure if it was permitted. It has been there for at least, looking back just in the aerial photos on Google, for at least 8 years. We can check if it went through permitting.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Can you go back to the original new site plan? Sorry, it skipped the last one that you just, probably site plan was not the best word. The one that you just went by, I don't know what you would call that right there. So they would be doing away with the gravel.
This was what we originally received, and then they started going through permitting, we saw a site plan that included the second driveway. And when we followed up with them, they said that they are wanting to include the driveway along Cold Creek Road as well. And so that's kind of what that's the biggest update between the site plans.
Gary, I was trying to help you out there. Does that help you in any way, or would you rather it be?
It shows me.
Yeah.
See, yes, thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, comments? Yes, Josh?
Is this single family turning into duplex, or is it just a strange deck layout with the addition of the side driveways? Just have me wondering here.
A duplex would not be allowed in the current zoning, just a single-family
Okay.
detached home is what's permitted.
Okay.
for
I mean,
that
just
parcel.
just looking at the rear view addition of the driveway just has me concerned that we're taking a single family to a duplex and we're trying to slide this in. So I would like confirmation that that is not the case, where we're not trying to subdivide a single family into a duplex.
We did look at the materials that they've submitted for their permitting, and it does not include, like two unconnected homes, basically.
Okay.
It is one connected.
Okay. And driveway material, I would like to see concrete if we're going to allow both driveways. If we're going to allow it, it would need to be a solid porous material, not asphalt millings that were dumped.
Gary?
You hit where I was going with that. I've seen a house look like that, and that looks like a duplex. And then the back of it looks like a duplex, the front of it looks like a duplex, additional driveway, it looks like a duplex. Thank you.
And clear, I know that might not be in planning and zoning's purview right now, but like I said, if we could just confirm, because like Gary said, it looks like a duplex. It just has everything, and we're adding the driveway, just like confirmation of that. So,
And we can follow up with the applicant again.
Okay.
They've stated that it's a single-family
Okay.
home, detached home, and that is all that would be allowed
okay,
as it's currently zoned, so
okay,
we can just double-check
okay,
with them.
thank you.
Yes, Gary?
Do you have, or get any internal site plan for that? See if there's two kitchens and hard wall separation, those sort of things? I mean, if they've got an illustration of the inside, or the outside, they've probably got some idea of what they want the inside to look like. Can we get a full layout of that?
I missed the first part of your question. Are you asking
They
if we
can-
have it or if y'all?
No, I'm asking, can you get that from the applicant
Yes.
before Monday night? Thank you.
All right, anybody else? All right, we'll move on to item number 6. Troy?
All right. Just to clarify the point from the previous item, there is no decel lane on the westbound approach to Stanley. The item before you tonight is a resolution associated with the Gwinnett County Hazard Mitigation Plan. We have participated with Gwinnett County since I've been here in their hazard mitigation and emergency management preparations. They take a leadership role in preparing those plans with input from the jurisdictions that participate through service delivery agreements. Our public safety staff, our public works staff, and management here at the city participate in the planning process, cooperating with Gwinnett County for the preparation of those documents. It's time for a 5-year update. We also have to indicate our participation in the plan in order to be eligible for any federal funds that might become available. Some of those might be related to disaster declarations. Some of them might be specific hazard mitigation grants that may be available. This doesn't really obligate us to participate. This is more descriptive in nature and indicates our, again, participation in that program. So the documents that have been provided to you is a short memo from me. It is a resolution that would indicate our participation. It describes the codes and who implements different code elements like floodplain management, like other historic codes and implementations. So National Flood Insurance Program is one of those that is a part of our action items. And then the last part of it is a list of some 6 mitigation actions that have been part of the plan for a little while now. These actually have been updated with this particular presentation. Instead of developing some of these items or procuring, the first example is the winter weather salting, sanding, and winter weather response equipment. It's really just to provide and maintain those pieces of equipment in response to winter storms. So we've got a pretty small estimated cost of what that might represent, and that might be replacing scrapers for fronts of pickup trucks. We've got a brine spreader that our public works staff constructed. We also want to provide and maintain generators for some of our critical facilities, City Hall being one of those. We do have generators at the E-Center. We also have a generator at our Public Works office. We have our storm warning system. We have a number of other elements that are listed. The biggest item, and I sound like a broken record, but I'll just mention that I do feel like it's an important consideration to provide some kind of early warning system for Gary Perkle Park. I think it's a big attraction for our sports programs, and having as much early warning as we can for that area is important. There is a big number in there for that, but it is not an obligation. I'm not recommending we spend that kind of money. We just should have a placeholder for something like that. And if we can get some way to tie in Corps of Engineers and their monitoring equipment with the park, I think it would be beneficial to our future use of the park. With that, the recommendation is to approve the resolution participating in the program, not specifically to action items necessary.
All right. Any questions of Troy? Yes.
So in discussion of an early warning system, certainly don't have a problem with that. We do have the tornado warning system installed there in the park. When that was first installed, it was installed to the left of the driveway off of Swanee Dam, which some of the neighbors in the adjoining neighborhood, I think it's Barrington Estates, did not want it that close to their house. It was moved, so it would be sensitive to location of those. They want to be notified. They don't want to be shaken out of their beds when that goes off. So sensitivity to where that goes, and if possible, and certainly from a cost standpoint, if that could be tied into the existing warning system instead of spending $500,000 on a new one, those would all be things to look at, but otherwise I have no problem with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Anybody else? Questions or comments? All right, thank you, Troy. We'll move on to our last item, and that is number 7, and that's following up on one of Meg's requests previously.
Yes, so staff received a request to look into residential parking in driveways and what our current requirements are, as well as kind of looking into what some of our neighbors are doing here. So we started by looking first at what is currently in our zoning ordinance. We have 2 different sections that explicitly have requirements for driveways and residential parking. One is in Article 4 in zoning districts and use provisions. Driveway, defined as single-family residential parking area, is not to exceed 30% of the front yard or 20% of the rear yard. And then in Article 11, Section 1106, for parking single-family residential, it states parking must be on concrete, asphalt, or gravel driveway, and is not to exceed more than 35% of a combination of the front, side, and rear yards. Additionally, in our city code, it just kind of goes a little bit further to explain that parking is not prohibited on grass, lawn, or dirt areas. And we were specifically asked to look at coverage as well as materials for driveways. And so we looked at 8 different other communities and what their requirements are. About half, we looked at 8, and half of the 8 do include gravel. 2 explicitly do not include gravel, and then 2 kind of left it more ambiguous in their ordinance. And for the most part, they have similar requirements, whether it's 30% of the front yard or 35% of a combination of the front side and rear yards. For Beaufort, I believe that should be 35% of the front yard is the correct number there. So this is just some of what our neighbors are doing. Additionally, Logan and I looked at specific properties in the community that had unpermitted driveway expansions, many of which were gravel driveways, and looking at what those coverage percentages looked like compared to our current requirements. And many of the driveways that we looked at, the majority of them did fit under the 35% of the front yard or rear yard. Just kind of with what we've looked at, our primary recommendation is to consolidate the current text so that we don't have kind of 2 different things being said in 2 different sections. So it's for zoning section 1106 to point to, or section 407 to point to section 1106, sticking with the 35, not to exceed 35% of a combination of the front, side, or rear yards.
Thank you, Claire.
Have any questions?
I think Meg may have have a couple questions.
When I read the proposed item for 1106, the 35%, and then Article Code Section 14-311 that was included with the proposal, which says about automobiles or motor vehicles, and I'll see what Reed has. It says, "It shall be unlawful to park any motor vehicle, either operable or inoperable, on the grass lawn or dirt areas in the yard of any non-residential structure." Shouldn't that say residential? What I got in the e-packet said, on the grass, lawn, or dirt areas in the yard of any non-residential structure
Then
or
that-
undeveloped property.
I believe that should read residential. That was probably just a typo. I have the screenshot on the screen of the code, and it says,
Oh, it does say residential there, okay. I was looking at the notes that I created tonight based on the e-packet. Okay, good. So it does say residential. Okay, that's great. The other thing that I was concerned about, that I had brought up, it does not say that there needs to be a maximum of 2 driveways per residential home.
that is correct. That's not currently written in the code.
So I guess if they wanted to put in a third, it would then not meet the criteria of the 35%? Is that why that's not in there?
If it were to exceed the 35%, then it would not be permitted.
Okay, because that was one of the reasons why I started looking into this, was because of a few people putting in a third driveway. So I was concerned about that. And also, as far as, okay, 1106, so any motor vehicle, boat, RV, trailer, or camper top on the grass lawn or dirt areas, do we need to include in there? Because as I've been driving through lately, I'm also noticing some vehicles parked on the sidewalk in a residential neighborhood. So I don't know if we need to add the word sidewalk. They should not, a sidewalk is not an extension of a driveway. And that's been a problem in the past few weeks. I just didn't know if that needed to be included in there. And now you're saying no gravel driveways at all?
We have not, in our current recommendation, we have not adjusted the materials for
gravel-
driveways, so it would still remain as concrete, asphalt, or gravel driveways.
Okay. And you still need a permit for a gravel driveway?
Yes,
And that's a permanent lifetime permit?
Yes.
Okay, I don't really agree with that. And I think that's all I have to say at the moment.
Gary?
So the wording I have, it says, shall not park on any surface other than approved concrete or asphalt parking areas shall be unlawful. Then it talks about existing gravel parking, but the wording that's in what I have printed out, and probably what was in the e-packet, implies that no gravel is allowed, which I don't think is where we were wanting to go with it, certainly not where I'm wanting to go with it. I know people that do have gravel driveways, I do think they should be temporary, and they're usually for a situation where you've got an extra driver, you need to park the car, you don't want to park on the street, you've got an accessory building in the rear, you have a second driveway to get to it, extremely high cost of gravel or of asphalt or concrete, and so I certainly see those for temporary uses, and I'm fine with that, but I do think they should be temporary, and a permanent structure should be longer. So I agree with where Meg was going, that there ought to be some sort of time frame, but I don't want to ban them entirely. And that's what I see in the current wording as written. So maybe just check. You already showed that there were some differences in what you had versus what we had, so we probably need to just verify that we're all on the same page with that. Thank you.
Gary and Meg, would y'all, just follow on that thread a little bit more, would the Buford that limits it to asphalt or concrete, is that what y'all would, is that what you're?
No, I'm saying we should still allow gravel, but I think it should be a temporary, not a permanent thing. But I think it should be an option, but I like the idea of having it, the permit where it lasts a year, 2 years, something like that. Because, like I said, for a temporary situation that can arise, you've got an in-law that had to move in or a child or something, but I don't see where those are
Agreed.
long-term.
I think we're on the same page. I meant permanent. I know that temporary is for a short period
Oh, I
of
see,
time, but
yes.
I meant for the
Yeah, but I would
permanent.
still allow for permit. And this wording, I think, allowed for that. It only referenced lawfully existing gravel, but it didn't say anything about new.
And just a question to throw it out there, how long is temporary?
I don't know, a year or 2 years, I mean, they can bring it back and ask for an extension if that's required. And I don't know, maybe we have to look at something in that, but whether that puts us in any sort of liability, or not necessarily liability, but, situation where, is there a max number of applications you can fill, I don't know, but it does seem like it should be more of a, as I said, a temporary than a permanent use.
So I'm maybe going to try to give you some direction based on what everybody has said, and please correct me if I'm wrong.
Ooh, I got a comment.
Yes, Josh, sorry.
Claire, can you go back to 14.311, the screenshot? Because I think what we have is like substantially different in the EPAC than what this screenshot is. And I'm not sure if it's because we've combined a couple different A's, B's, and C's to what we have in the EPAC versus this.
We will correct the EPAC.
Okay.
What is on the screen currently is correct. That was screenshotted
Okay.
directly from the Municipal Code.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with Gary. I hate to ban gravel because I do think there is a time and a place on a temporary basis. My concern, I mean, I think to me temporary is 18 months and then maybe you file for a renewal. My concern is, and this is, I voiced this concern previously. My concern is we already have code compliance challenges currently that are not being addressed, and adding another layer or another permit or something else for us to follow up on, I mean, it needs to happen. I just think we've got to work out some other issues before we start throwing more that we have to follow up, because I mean, I think people will come out and say, hey, I want a gravel driveway. I mean, that's just something, my neighbor just put one in. I didn't tell him to put a permit in. That's between him and the city. Not my right to say anything, but it is what it is. So there's challenges there that we've got to come up with a follow-up piece as council, I think, of how can we best do that and streamline this process and what that process looks like, work with the city manager and figure out what exactly that is, so.
We did briefly speak to our code enforcement officers following the last meeting where this was discussed, and they definitely are busy and they stay busy, but they said without kind of more details on what that enforcement would look like, what the timeline is, kind of how it would be measured, it would be difficult to kind of have a concrete answer as to what that would do to their workload.
Mayor, to solve the mystery related to section 14-311, there are two subsections. Subsection A, which is on your screen, relates to residential. The provision that's in the e-packet that mentions non-residential is subsection B that relates to non-residential properties. So they're both correct because there are two different subsections to 14-311, and we just haven't put them all together, correct?
And I guess the ultimate goal or the recommendation, one recommendation is to combine.
Yes, to provide
Everything.
clarity on what exactly the requirement is.
So without getting too specific, I think what I'm hearing from everybody is that we want to, there needs to be some limitation, obviously, of driveways, probably consistent with what you have recommended from a percentage standpoint overall. And for permanent, we want there to be some substance like asphalt or concrete versus gravel or something else, sand, I don't know what else would be used. But we also need to take into consideration temporary needs and maybe have a renewal process if someone needs to come to us and renew that temporary gravel driveway. Does that all kind of line up? Yes, ma'am.
When I'm rereading again 14.311, because like Josh said, it's a little bit different than the e-packet. Another thing I wanted to ask about, it mentions the, RV or boat or, so does this mean that as long as it's parked on a driveway, it can be in front of the house? It doesn't have to be, right now, it says you have to be in line with the side of the house. It cannot protrude. You can't really park in the driveway if your driveway, you're in front of the house. It has to be at the side and cannot extend past the house. So is that still the way?
Go back to 14.3.1. It says, section shall not be exclusive regulation of placement of parking or standing. So it's like a supplement, Frank, default to you.
I believe that is correct. I think that provision is in another section that hasn't been captured by the planning staff, but they can confirm that. But I think the section that requires it to be in the side or rear yard is in a different section that's not been provided to you tonight, but they can clarify that for next week.
I believe that's in section 613. And we can add that to the PowerPoint.
All right, so one more question. We're not actually taking action on this because the Planning and Zoning Commission has to receive it first, right? So does this need to be on the agenda for this coming Monday night? Have we given you enough direction? Again, this is just a question. Yes, Gary?
I just wanted to ask if anyone would be opposed to tabling. I'd like us to have more discussion before we send it off, because I think there were a lot of moving parts and we haven't hit quite what we're looking for. So I'd rather it come back to us before we
And when you say kind of postpone it, do you mean for
bring up
another
next
month?
month's work session.
Yes, sir, absolutely. Is that,
If that's agreeable to everybody, I prefer.
yes, Paul?
Following up on Gary's point, and the question about gravel being a temporary condition, whatever time frame we want, and would that be, as we're preparing the administrative process, what would be the outside term of a temporary becoming a permanent? If it is it 1 6-month extension, 1 year extension, where this temporary condition then turns into a permanent condition?
Me personally, I don't know. I'd be curious to see like what if some other cities contemplate temporary and what their processes might be for that. I can only make a judgment based on what other communities are doing around us. That's just my personal opinion. Josh?
Can I call on another Councilmember Anderson, as he's in this field? I mean, any thoughts on temporary, non-temporary? I mean, my one concern is, I know gravel will eventually sink into the yard, sure, grass will grow, but you'll never see gravel there. I think my concern, I think we just saw it on the design review for Level Creek, is asphalt millings is not the same case. You pack those suckers in and you've got an asphalt driveway eventually that grass will start growing into, and that the terms of gravel, people say, oh, asphalt millings, bam, you're in there. I mean, you're in that profession. I mean, what's coming to your mind here?
Go for it, Taylor.
Gravel is clearly a temporary solution. It requires actually a lot of maintenance. A gravel driveway does to maintain it correctly. And it actually ends up being a lot more expensive than if you were just to put asphalt in over time, for sure. I mean, I think 18 months with a 6-month extension, which gets you to 2 years, probably solves the issue if it's not going to be asphalt or concrete. And then to Meg's point, if the desire is for a maximum of 2 driveways, if somebody wants a 3rd driveway, they can always apply to the city for a variance from that, if then they've got a good enough reason to get a 3rd driveway, go for a 3rd driveway. So it seems like it's pretty straightforward to me, just a little bit of language cleanup and 18-month temporary gravel permit with a 6-month extension. And then if they need more than that for whatever reason, I guess they can always come to us for a variance, and that's always an option for them as well. But at least with a 6-month extension, administrative, that keeps it out of our hands, and we don't have to deal with something like that. And if it's more than that, if it's more than 2 years, then sure, they can come talk to us about it. That'd be my suggestion.
And I would note section 14.311 on your non-residential subdivision for B actually has language that talks about how you have to maintain your gravel, and that it has to be maintained at 4 inches of depth, and it has to be kept free from debris and weeds and other things. Your residential provision doesn't have that in there. Why do you have one for maintenance requirements for non-residential but not for residential? So there are some other, as you do this, I think, look holistically about how we clean up some other things where there's just consistency in both residential and non-residential scenarios and situations.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Good discussion. Any more discussion or questions before we end off? Yes, Josh.
I have a technical, and maybe this is a frank question. I mean, does the city have I mean, we put in here 14.311 section B is what wins in our e-packet. How can we enforce, we put 4 inches, I mean, or can we legally go out there on someone's property and stick a ruler and says it's not 4 inches?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, in this situation, you've got regulations, and you can inspect and make sure that they are meeting those regulations, and if not, cite them to your municipal court. And
Okay. Let's get some rulers, Paul.
All right, anybody else? Josh, are you sure?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm on a roll tonight. I'm sorry.
No worries. All right, so we're done with all of the agenda items, and we're just now getting to reports. So, Paul, what have you got for us?
I think Troy and I and others would like to defer our reports until council meeting on Monday.
I have not talked to you today about executive session. Do we need to have? All right, and can you tell us what purposes so we can make that motion?
For real estate matters.
All right. Is there a motion to go into executive session for real estate matters?
Make a motion to go into executive session for real estate matters.
All right, I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor of going into executive session, please raise your right hand. All right, we're going to go into executive session. We'll come back out. Paul, we don't have any action afterwards, okay? Thank you, Jane. We are back from executive session. We discussed 2 real estate matters. We have no action as a city council that we need to take, but we did give direction to Paul and on a real estate matter, and Paul is going to explain that.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. In executive session, you gave me direction to work with legal counsel to draft an MOU for the sale of city property, and which will be part of a planning and zoning action on 9/16.
All right, thank you. And that is all that we have, and I'll just take a motion to adjourn our work session if there is one.
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn from Alvin. Is there a second? Second from Meg. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All right, great. We are adjourned, and we'll see everybody next Monday.